Now we're getting into map number 1, Mixu versus Bosse. And this is, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, in my mind this is the primordial matchup between Vanguard and Infernals. Thank you very much, Soloran, for the follow, by the way. In the bottom left, we're gonna have Mixu, our Vanguard player, and on the top right, we're gonna have Bosse, our Infernal player. If you're unfamiliar with the history between these two players, let me give you the short version. Mixu has won the past 4 Alpha Navigators Cups when they were in Frigate. He absolutely wiped the floor with everybody else in a time where the Vanguard were very powerful. But even when the Vanguard are not powerful, Mixu still rocks hard. On the other side, Bosse has been a consistently, at times, good player. He has competed on the AGC Open, which is where he earned a Wikipedia page from, and that was on the back of some strong Infernal play. He is one of the acolytes of the Aftermath sort of theory branch of Infernal play. The kind of idea where you go out into the map, you start harassing, and you can see it right here on your screen right now, how he's moving forward with that Shroud Zone and the Hexen just being an absolute pain in the ass for Mixu, who's just trying to macro here. He's playing an honest game where he's going to expand first, and then his opponent is just deciding to be pain on the butt right here. Well, that's classic Bosse. That's the classic idea of going out into the map and being annoying against your opponent because you have the opportunity to do those things. And this is going to be a very cool matchup. It's one of those things where, like, if we get to the 5-minute, the 10-minute mark, I think we're going to be looking at some incredible showmanship between these two players when it comes to the macro, when it comes to moving and positioning your armies. One of the things that Mixu was well known for in the Frigate playtest was his ability to micro his atlases with the evac, and now the evac has been nerfed with the speed reduction when it comes to the atlases that get packed up in there. But regardless, Mixu will find a way, just as he's doing right now. He's building a sentry post, adding a bob to it to create a repair-o-matic, and that repair-o-matic itself is going to be able to repair the bobs going. You can see the bobs returning the favor, keeping the sentry post up because they want to be able to destroy that Shroud Zone that is harassing the economy on the expansion. So this is obviously not ideal for Mixu. He would like all of those bobs to be out there mining, but he has to have them kind of fighting here, and maybe one of them will get caught by the Brute. The Brute, it might be slow, it may only have like a certain amount of health that never feels quite like enough, but they are still a fierce opponent for the mighty bobs, simply because they have a very powerful blade. If we actually check the damage, that is 30 damage per slash. That is a big swing coming down on it. So these brutes are going to be coming in here harassing, and whatever they lack in speed, they make up for just a threatening attitude and being able to push things like bobs away from the mining. We're gonna have a little bit of a stall here for Mixu. His economy is gonna be slowing down. It's gonna have to fight off these brutes on the main. Meanwhile, his opponent is just having a grand old time in his base. You can see that it is fully mined out on the Luminite, and he's sending a couple on the Ethereum. This is going to allow for a transition into Guns a little bit later on. We can see the Conclave is about to be finished for that particular reason, and the Shrine is going to go up to a Greater Shrine, one of these two, to allow for a Tier 2 upgrade. Something that a lot of players have noted on the side of Vanguard is that their Tier 2 transition, the timing that it takes, those 60 seconds, they feel like a lifetime, and I can see why, because Mixu right now is struggling to get there. He's having to fight tooth and nail for every single Luminite that he's mining, for every single Ethereum that he's mining. Remember that to upgrade into the next tier of buildings with the command post into the command center, you need a little bit of Ethereum to make it work. And that is exactly what Bosse is targeting with his aggression. He wants to deny that Ethereum. He wants to make it as difficult as possible for Mixu to get out of this initial stage of preparing his units, of making sure that he has the available resources to then construct his barracks, to start getting exos out, to maybe get a medtech into the field. And you can see Mixu now getting the biokinetics up, getting another barracks. This is going to allow for that medtech that I was talking about, and eventually we will see the upgrading to tier 2 of one of these two. So the Lancers are now out into the field alongside the Scouts. The main idea behind this is that you can get a couple more resources, particularly Ethereum, by attacking these resource camps. Unfortunately, one of the little dogs has gotten up into the stage and is going to need to be killed up from the cliff to be able to get that. On the other side of the map, meanwhile, the Vision Camp has been taken by Bosse, who now has a big, massive Fiend. Now, the threatening thing about the Fiends is not only do they have speed, though the speed right now is a little bit bugged because they don't quite chase as well as one would like it, but the biggest threat that you can see from the Fiends is the surround, is the ability to get in front of the units like that Lancer. Look at that, the Lancer having to absolutely wait there until his allies break him through the Fiend sort of fence that was built around him and managed to escape, but barely. So now Mixu is thinking, well, I'm probably gonna need a third base, and he's right. Bosse is picking up a third base. He doesn't want to be a base behind against his opponents, but he also needs to upgrade to the next level of tech. We have both still on a command post. This is not ideal. He needs to mine that Ethereum, but he needs Ethereum for the upgrade, so he has to wait a little bit longer. Getting a couple of Exos out, who also cost Ethereum as far as I know, I believe, and that'll complicate things a little bit further. You want those Exos out into the field because they deal really good damage. They are the way that you can clean the Fiends out, thin out the herds of Gaunts, and make your way into a third expansion, and that is exactly what Mixu wants to do. He needs the Ethereum, he needs the resources. He is having to play catch up here, not in a very good or fun way. You can see Bosse setting up observation posts essentially with those Fiends going out into the bases and making sure that whatever Mixu tries to expand, that he will have the knowledge of it and will be able to deny it. So the healing camp here could be taken by either player. Obviously, our friend here, Bosse, would like to be the one taking it because he could heal his units with it, but it's not necessarily something that will happen out of necessity. The third expansion now for Bosse is fully operational, and you saw right now how there was that little swirl around. That refreshed the Imp's recharge, which meant that he could get 3 more Imps out immediately with the resources that he had. That is exactly what you're seeing happening. A third expansion finally going up for the side of Mixu. This is the sort of economic advantage that he wants to land on for the future. We see then progress into the central command right now, and thank you Aurel for the follow. We have a big engagement going then into the ramp, and it is a Bosse cannon that is going to cut down on the Infernals. You can see the splashes of blood and destruction that are left behind, and the Infernals have to lick their wounds in hell back. The gates of hell for just another night while Mixu prepares. So Bosse, wanting to center around this camp, keeps orbiting around the Bosse cannon, but that Bosse cannon not only deals damage to the first unit, but also bounces around once or twice, I believe. That is more than capable of cutting down small units like the Fiends, but particularly units that are very weak and that are very unarmored like the Gaunts. The Gaunts may have the speed, but the Bosse cannon has the damage. Following on then, all the camps have been captured except for our Luminite and health resources. So at this time, either player could be going for that. The Gaunts are approaching then with the Reaper Rush. A massive amount of speed here to try and macro out. He wants to take out the Biokinetics lab, as it is the place where the infantry upgrades sustain themselves. There's also a Hellborn on the field. That is going to be very deadly for those Exos, unless something major happens here that flips the tides of battle. The Gaunts then surrounding an effigy, recharging their white health, getting ready for the next engagement. Meanwhile, on the front, we see Mixu preparing himself for a defensive position up north, but the core army of Bosse is hanging out on the south. It is preparing itself to attack on this side of the map, going for the upgrade on the Quick Draw Hustle, which gives the Exos extra speed after their first shot. That is one of the few ways that you can actually deny the Gaunt's speed, try to follow them through, but this could be very bad. If the Gaunts destroy the Biokinetics lab before it finishes, it will not finish the upgrade, and that'll spell disaster for our friend Mixu here. Going up into a 4th base, Bosse, getting ready for the next step. in his master plan to dominate the micro over here. Biokinetics Lab continues to research, but it actually goes down before it can finish the Lancers upgrade. So now Mixu doesn't have any technology to be able to upgrade. He's gonna need to rebuild that Biokinetics Lab, but I don't know where he's gonna build it from. And he definitely wants the upgrades for his Lancers to develop those shields, because as you can see, they are not having a good time out there with those Hellborns on the loose, as well as a Shroudstone Tower there, keeping watch over the ramp and over the Vision Camp too. Now then, the guns advancing once again. The mass of Exos now, however, is sizable. They can snipe out all of these guns. If Bosse is not careful, he's gonna get thinned out quite a lot. A couple of shots from the Hellborn, they're not targeting the mass of the unit, so they will get a kill on the Lancer, but not necessarily any hits onto the Exos. Medtechs now onto the field to be able to heal up the Exos. Unfortunately, because there is no Biokinetics Lab, there's probably not an adept upgrade either for those Medtechs, so they're not healing as much as they possibly could. Now the Exos are having to move back, but they are slowed down by his opponents. The guns are pushing forward. They're sort of targeting the Medtechs. The Medtechs have a little bit more health, but not a lot more health. Now it is a game of back and forth. The Fiends are coming in. The guns do have full upgrades, so they're dealing more damage with their Infest, and they're dealing Infest itself. So this is a bad situation to be in. All of your infantry units could be destroyed here. The Hellborns get a really nice shot off against the Exos. It's going to be a difficult time now for Mixu to prepare for it. 4 full bases on the side of Bosse. That's not what you want to see. More conclaves are going up as well, so this is going to be a big mass of guns coming through and getting ready. Mixu could try to, and I was about to say, could try to bring up an expansion here almost in secret, but it's going to be a very difficult claim. But as long as the guns remain on the south side, there is an opportunity here to pull that through. There is an evac full of Vulcans up into the air. The Vulcans obviously don't slow down the evac as much as the Atlases. So now it is a question of whether or not Mixu can micro the evac well enough to deal damage to these guns but not lose the Vulcans. In goes the Vulcans. They charge forward, but they don't get in range of the guns, at least not enough. The Hellborns get a couple of shots in, but it's not enough to fully kill the Vulcans. They are low health, however, and are gonna need a Bob repair team to get them up to snuff again. Shroudstone denied, as well as an imp kill possibly, but not enough again to fully stake out the Infernals that are now up into the cliff. This is gonna be a complicated situation for Mixu to deal with. He does have his south expansion freed up a little bit though, as the north side is gonna get attacked. The Vulcans are gonna be firing, and those are some good shots. Gets a couple of drags in and gets the guns headed out of it. Vulcans then are marching on. They need to charge up their shots. It takes a few seconds for it. And now the Exos are joining in on the fan. A Shroudstone Manifestation goes down to try and deny this push. It might be good enough. The up ramp is a difficult position to be in, and Magadons push forward. They are gonna get the stun on the Lancers, and they're gonna pull the Exos back as the expansion seems to be denied fully. More Vulcans are coming down, but the Magmadons deal sufficient damage that the Vulcans will be eliminated here today. Now it's down to the Exos and the Lancers to try their best. One lone Vulcan at half health cannot do it all. Magmadons, they do get cut down a bit, however. The expansion will go down and the Vulcan will get the kills on those little guns. It's getting up there on the veterancy, and remember, veterancy deals 80 more health, plus 10% more damage, and 5% more attack speed for the Vulcan. So that is a sizable amount of health, damage, and attack speed for these guys. So you shouldn't look over them. On the other hand, we also have an Atlas on the map, and this is sort of Mixu's specialty. He loves to pick up the Atlases and moves them around. Obviously, since the early access patch, the Griffin patch, picking them up also slows down the evac, so you cannot micro them as effectively as before. And we see a couple of Shadow Flyers also up in the air. They're going to be threatening that evac at any moment right now. We have a Sentinel up in the air too. Sentinel obviously increases the speed of those units passively, but it also gives them a couple of abilities that they can use, like the Dispersal Aura and the Detector. No invisible units as of this time though, and the Atlases do get a couple of good shots in, but that mass of Hellborns is very strong. That is going to be a very dangerous area, and the Atlases go right into the front line. They get picked up and sent back, but they're very low health. They are going to get a couple of good shots in, but they don't have the upgrade to deal damage over time, so some of these guns are going to survive, except those that got smashed down by the Plasma Cannon over there. The Magmadon tries to break through, but is not able to do so. The Repair-O-Matic is trying to help the Atlases right now stay on touch, while the factory is producing another Vulcan to go here in the front line. We see now the guns are trying to filter through into the Imperium line, but it's not going to be enough. And this is all a very tenuous position for Mixu, by the way, because you have to realize that one of the things Bosse has been doing behind this entire push, and that's an incredible shot with the Atlases. It absolutely decimates the forces of Bosse. The guns are gone for good, and now it's primarily a Hellborn force with a couple of Shadow Flyers up in the air. They're going to try to strike on the southern face, but I don't know if that is going to be enough. That shot with the guns was absolutely hellish. It completely destroyed the momentum that Bosse was having here onto that south face, but Mixu needs to be careful. Those Hellborns are still an incredible threat to him, and the Shadow Flyers that are going up into the air could be very dangerous to the lone little evac with the Atlases up into the air. So Bosse seems to be going back to basics, getting the Vision Camp, trying to stabilize himself once again after losing those guns. It is a good strategy. He has been taking more and more expansions up into the north side of the map. He has added a couple of Twilight Spires, which are gonna let him have both Springans and Shadow Flyers going up. And here we see another confrontation, and the Gaunts again, they get killed by the Vulcans and the Exos. This is actually not a great fight for our boy Bosse. The Hellborns are trying to give their support from the backline, but the engagement is not happening at the ranges that Bosse would be very happy with. And the more time goes, the more Mixu can start stabilizing, getting those Atlases out into the field. And if Mixu can hit at the moments that Bosse is not particularly looking forward to it, then this could be done. However, there is a split here, denies the expansion on the south side. Now this army is moving around quite a lot. The evac drops down. The two Atlases, they don't have the upgrade still, so they're not dealing damage over time, but they hit the Hellborns quite a lot. This could be the time where the Exos on the left side go after the Hellborns, while the Wilds on the south side are trying to survive the absolute fire that is happening here with the Bobs trying to self-repair. A Weaver goes out, and he's now trying to latch on to those Atlases, pull them into the ground, and try to keep them there. The Shadow Flyers are up in the air, and they're trying to get that evac, and you can see how Mixu is trying to bait them in. He's trying to set them in, but the evac is so low health, he immediately promotes it to try and keep it survive. It has less than 30 points and drops down the Atlas, but that is going to be GG for game number 1 of these semifinals, and it is going to be Bosse taking game number 1. Game number 2 between Mixu and Bosse on the semifinals of the Alpha Navigators Cup 14 Americas. And of course, it's 2 European players. Wouldn't have it any other way, eh? So of course we are looking at Mixu and Bosse right here. On the bottom left we have Mixu, the eternal Vanguard player. He's been playing Vanguard for so long that you probably never knew. And on the other side we have Bosse playing as Infernals, who also has always played Infernal. These 2 players are married to their factions as far as I'm concerned, and we'll always think of them within those faction terms. But we are now into the second game of this best of 3. We have, of course, a win on game number 1 going to Bosse after a very back and forth. At some points it very much felt like Mixu could have broken through the gate on that one, but unfortunately for Mixu, he ended up tapping out after getting pressure and pressure and pressure building up inside his base to needing to expand to get out, and Bosse responding with, no, you're not getting out. So that was on Broken Crown. Now we're moving into our next game here in Boneyard. And Boneyard is a little different in some ways and a little similar in many others. For one, you have a relatively safe expansion. You can go out and expand into your same level. It is one of those things that is a little bit safer. It also does technically open up another gate for you in the form of this little ramp over here and this little ramp over here, so you're not entirely safe, but it is a little bit safer than some of your other expansions. For example, the natural third that many players take is this whole thing, which is so far away and so difficult to protect. It definitely necessitates a lot of extra tier units. And right here, where Mixu actually landed a sentry post, surprisingly enough, it's the other option for your third, which has access to Luminite on the safe side and a little bit of Ethereum on what I would consider the dangerous side. It is the dangerous side because it is putting you in range of other units, and you also have, on a technical level, a Luminite island that you can end up taking. So those are your positions and how you're going to be expanding throughout this map, but those are not the only places. I think one of the more interesting places and the interesting changes that happened to this map from the frigate version of the game into early access is the addition of the siege camps. So this was a feature that only existed previously on Jagged Maw and has now been included on Boneyard, which means that if you take the siege camp, you are sending out a very tough unit and putting it forward into your opponent's face just by grabbing it. And it's not in Jagged Maw like it is this sort of central space where you are absolutely fighting over it. It is off into the sides and in a place that is a little bit more difficult to spot if you're trying to protect against it. Mixu is going to be grabbing here the vision camp. This, as it turns out, and I didn't know about this before, you can capture the camp and it will not only give you vision onto the area around it, but it will also give all of your units a little bit of a wider view radius. So that's a very interesting way that you can sort of utilize the vision camp not only as a buff on a local area but also a general buff so that you have better scouting. So we're seeing now this, and we're gonna see. Great to hear, Aurelia, and you know what? The level is gonna improve. We're gonna be seeing your tournament soon enough, and that is probably gonna be really, really good as well with a lot of open players. We're gonna be seeing Stormgate Nexus tournament as well. That is also gonna be pretty big. And whoa, Mixu GG's. He's gonna give the win to Bosse. So that is incredible. So at 2-0, Bosse over Mixu. So Mixu taps out, and it is gonna be once again an Infernal player taking the win